Let's call the meeting to order, and if you would please do the roll call.
Certainly. Sue Burton.
Here.
David Harrington. Matthew Crutcher.
Here.
Mark Munson.
Present.
Laura Bellin.
Present.
Landon Moore. For those of you who don't know, his wife had a baby yesterday morning. Gary Waters.
Here.
Derek Challenger.
Here.
Solomon Ashby.
Here.
Libby Gooden. Present. Ann Seward.
Yes.
You do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Did everybody have a chance to look at the extensive minutes that were issued? One of the things that we talked about last month or month before last was how extensive, and I think we're going to discuss that again a little bit later in the meeting.
I appreciated them since I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Well, take a look carefully, and is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. It's unanimous. Are you ready for the applications for retirement?
Yes, I am. We had no applications for the Portsmouth retirement system. We had no applications for fire and police. Unfortunately, we had several deaths. Charles White, fire and police, passed away. 50% spousal annuity, Mrs. Ellen White. Denny L. Freeman of the Supplemental plan passed away. 75% annuity to Mrs. Avis Freeman. Billy Crawford, fire and police, passed away. 50% annuity to Mrs. Barbara Crawford. Doris Gillikin, Supplemental, passed away. 50% annuity. However, the spouse predeceased. And George Harris, fire and police, 50% spousal annuity payable to Donna Harris. As of March 1st, we have 19 active in fire and police and 17 active in supplemental.
Any questions? All right. Our recurring business report, the schedule of historic funds.
Year-to-date as of January 31st, beginning balance $230,630,954.83. We have interest income of $4,053,412.54. Administrative expenses of $135,973.82. Return of benefit payments, $18,369.85. Recurring benefit payments, $17,761,150.23. Employer contributions of $4,158,377.51. Realized gain of $1,556,564.24. An unrealized gain of $14,512,383.82. That is a net change year-to-date of $6,401,983.91, giving us an ending balance of $237,032,938.74. That is $11,371,537.45 more than where we were as of January 31st, 2017.
Any questions? All right. We'll move on to unfinished business, report from the investment committee.
So I believe here it's important to note the RFP that you all authorized at your last meeting that has been issued. The due date back for that is March 22nd, 2018. It was issued according to your vote at the last meeting so that responses could be provided either at a discretionary, non-discretionary, or both. So once those, and I believe you all got a digital copy of that RFP, once those are received, we'll certainly proceed forward with setting up those interviews and bringing that back to this group.
I didn't get a chance to thoroughly look through the parts of it that might have been of interest. How is it significantly different from the RFP that we issued before? The fact that it does give the option, or at least point out the option of either or?
Ms. Dameron, before she left, made those edits, and she did use the last template, and I believe that is the only change, was to allow for the discretionary, non-discretionary, and/or both.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
My concern was to make sure that any statements of conflict of interest were in there, and that was required. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there that is absolutely required, especially like the whole section on the city code. All right, there's no more questions on the RFP. Moving on to the review of city council and the COLA decision.
So just to give you a brief report on that, there was a PowerPoint that was presented by Ms. Gooden and myself to the City Council at their February 27th meeting. I believe that's contained in your packet. We simply reviewed with the City Council this funding status of the pension plan, the impact of any decision to provide any kind of an ongoing COLA. No action was taken at that meeting. If you have any questions in regard to that presentation, I'm sure Ms. Gooden and I can both address those.
And that is also on the YouTube
Yes.
channel, the work session.
Those are all videotaped.
If it's possible, could you send us that link directly so that we're not searching around? If anybody does want to take a look at it and see what the questions and all were,
Yes, I'd be happy to see. Ms. Moser will send that to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, was that the, I'm sorry, is that their final decision?
Well, no action
just-
was the decision, so the impact, I think the fiscal impact of it was the deterrent there.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Under new business, the Schaefer-Cullen memo.
That was a memo that Brian Birnbaum from Greystone sent to Barbara Dameron on the 12th of February. And I want to point out, I was incorrect. They are not discretionary. They are a non-discretionary. We do have to give them instructions for everything, which is why this recommendation came out, and it's had to wait until this meeting, because they could not act on it without the board's say so. What they recommended, and I did include a copy of it in your packet, but in brief, what they recommended is moving about $11 million out of the Schaefer-Cullen Fund into the, I believe it is Vanguard Fund, to take advantage of the drop that there was in February in the market. As you may recall, Schaefer-Cullen is designed to protect us from big drops in the market. But this is not one that they feel is going to last. Everything is going to rebound, as we have seen. It has started to. And they wanted to take advantage of moving the money into Vanguard, where we can make some money off of it. It would still leave about $30 million in the Schaefer-Cullen, which would be a large chunk that would still be protected. I called Brian yesterday to check with him. He said one of the issues they had was Schaefer-Cullen didn't protect our funds as much as it should have. It saw a loss. It saw more of a loss than what they had hoped it would show. So he felt that it was a better idea to take some of that money, put it into Vanguard, where it's going to actually make us money as the market rebounds. So that is still their suggestion, even though it's a month later. They still recommend that we take $11 million out of the Schaefer-Cullen, move it into the Vanguard, and have it invested appropriately.
Now, if you all remember last month, we talked about how Schaefer-Cullen was where they're getting their payments, and they had already cut it back some, and this is cutting it back even more. So that's the issue. Is there any discussion? Do you all want to take a minute to read the memo with more detail, or?
I'm sorry, it was where, who was getting their payments from?
Greystone.
Greystone, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So Greystone stands to lose some money by making this recommendation.
Yes, but as they've said, it's for the good of this fund and for this board, and so they want to do what's right for us.
And we've gone, as I recall, the last year or so, based on what Greystone has recommended. And we're up 11 million?
Yes, sir.
Unless there's anybody else, I would make a motion at this point that we go with that recommendation.
I would second.
Any other discussion? All right, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed.
So that will require direction. We'll put that together. I can follow up and speak with Brian, and we'll get that out.
All right, great. All right, and next we have an invoice to approve from John Hancock.
Yes.
That's the last page, correct?
Yes. It's, I believe this has to do with the supplement that went out.
The supplement, creation of the notification, the distribution.
Make a motion, we pay our bills.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that just got directly deposited did it not?
I think we did it in the, yeah.
Yep. It was either January or March, depending on whether it was before or after the additional.
Right.
And yes, if you receive a check, you received a check. If it was direct deposit, it just automatically went in.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had a question about the RFP. March 22nd was the return date.
Yes.
What are the dates, the timeframes after that?
I don't believe we've gone any further to
wasn't a
discuss,
date
but I
that,
think we're going to try to move as quickly as possible.
I think it usually depends on the number of responses that you get, because you need adequate time to go through them. So if you only get a couple, we could certainly expedite it. If you get quite a few, you might need a little bit more time with that. So once we get them back, I'm sure we'll coordinate with Ms. Burton and try to put together a schedule. And I believe you have an investment committee that'll be doing that. So we'll coordinate the meetings accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else before we move on to the quarterly review by Mr. Shanley, who fought bravely to get here through all of the weather impediments? All right, Tom, I think you're up then.
All right, thank you. All right, good morning again, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Usually attend with Greystone during the quarterly investment review, so I appreciate you letting me come in here a little off cycle since I wasn't able to attend last month's meeting. I did want to take a little bit of a different approach today and just give you a general overview of, and more as hopefully either a reminder or an introduction at a high level to the services that we provide, so that there's just an understanding of what we are doing. And then a quick update with regards to the cost structure. Again, I know there's some new board members. I know one's not with us today, but just thought this would be a good opportunity to walk through that and just highlight some accomplishments from the past year. And I did provide the standard quarterly transactional report that I generally do, but I don't think there's really much of a need to go through it since we're a couple of months past that. And I promise to move quickly, but if you have questions, please let me know as I go through it here. So I will just work right off of the PowerPoint hard copy presentation. Section 1, just a brief update on our organization. So what's laid out here in the two facing pages after Section 1 is just a reminder, and I just wanted to make you aware of some slight modifications in organizational change, which we see as very positive for the retirement plan business. But As a reminder, John Hancock is owned by Manulife Financial, who's a Canadian-based company, legacy insurance company, been moving through and more into global retirement and wealth and asset management. Manulife, through John Hancock, as you know, acquired our business as we were previously part of New York Life, now closing in on 3 years ago. But that was an initial sign of their continued direction of building out their retirement plan business. They or we are a global retirement provider, both in the North America, in Asia, and also now starting to get into some areas in Europe. This just highlights some of the assets under management and administration. And, the one at the top leads into the next page, where there's currently $164 billion in retirement plan services under our administration. If you go over to the right-hand side, this breaks out what we refer to as our mid and large segment. So if you just looked at it from one higher level, we service over 55,000 retirement plans. That starting from really startup 401k plans and the micro market, small businesses, all the way up to mega-sized organizations, with 50,000 plus employees and multiple billion dollars in assets. The city of Portsmouth sits within that mid and large structure, and it's more of a full service retirement plan offering. So that's some of the highlights here. We currently have around $70 billion in assets in that group, and a little bit over 800 plans that we administer, both from 401k and defined benefit. And then we also have a significant Taft-Hartley service group as well, focused on union plans. The next 2 pages at a high level, and I think I've talked about this first, it's maybe a little bit more tempered with a frozen retirement system, but we obviously still are focused on, when we look at how are we building out our service structure, it's from a participant first perspective. So, everything we do, we look at it from the lens of how can we make this a better experience for the plan participants, your former or active members of the retirement system, and then take opportunities throughout. As I mentioned, on the right-hand side here, page 9, we do support defined contribution, executive benefits, so it's more of non-qualified plans, executive compensation, and then full-service defined benefit plans offerings that, as you know, includes full actuarial work. All right, so in section 2, the specific service model, on page 12 is just a listing of the service team members. My ultimate responsibility is to ensure that, really wherever your focus points are with regards to the administration and participant interactions are getting accomplished and working with the rest of our team internally. Irene Burns is what we refer to as defined benefit analyst. She was down last year. I know she wasn't able to make this meeting, but we were having to have a separate meeting with HR and Ms. Gooden's group, and she's really responsible for all of the ongoing administrative activity, and she deals a lot both with Ms. Gooden's group, with Ms. Mosier, and working through all of contributions, distributions, tax reporting. Really, any time new benefits come up, she handles all of that, coordinates that internally. Andre Stewart, who most of you have met, is the consulting actuary. I know he was just down here as well for the meeting with council. From our service structure, when we talk about these roles, and the vast majority of what we do, it's called a bundled approach, meaning for the most part, there are exceptions, of course, but what we do for you is all included in our communicated base required revenue. Some actuarial groups, for instance, will charge every time you need to speak with them, or if they're required to attend meetings, additional valuation work. That's not how we're structured. So Andre coming down here doesn't create additional charges for the system. Where we are asked to do some additional analysis, some of the additional COLA work, there are at times additional charges for that, but that's always communicated up front. And then we do have some quote-unquote standard offerings around communications. The 2 participants that I'll mention, that's all covered. There are times, such as with the supplement, if there's something one-off that comes up, there could be an additional charge for that as well. So I just wanted to mention that, how that's based. These other individuals, you all probably don't really interact with, but Nicole supports Andre and coordinates a lot of what is needed from an actuarial perspective. Carol is a communications specialist, and she works on any additional notification needs or meetings, which we actually have been having some conversations about getting on the schedule, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then Brian Moore, we do assign an internal investment services individual. Since you have always had a third-party advisor or consultant, he really isn't client-facing, but I work with him, or Brian and Greystone works with him if they need information on investments from us. So that is the team that's assigned to the retirement systems here. And then, we look across all of these different segments from governance. For example, we provided fiduciary training about a year and a half ago to the board, and it probably makes sense to maybe think of scheduling something this year again, especially with new members coming on board. Operational efficiencies, plan design, not really much of an issue with the frozen system. The supporting investments, plan costs and value I'll talk about, and then, as I mentioned, employee engagement. I won't go through all of these, but really, this is kind of at a high level the main responsibilities that we do handle, from the trustee services, custodial services, ongoing administration, all the distribution of benefit payments, the tax reporting of that, a full-service website, and a full-service participant call center, the actuarial work, any communications needed, et cetera. Some information here on our actuarial team. Our group actually, legacy created in 1970 as an actuarial benefits team, and we've grown from there as the retirement system in the U.S. has grown to become, more involved in 401k plans and then executive benefit plans. The organization was acquired by New York Life back in the 1990s, and then again, most recently, our group has kind of been brought into the larger John Hancock relationship. But we have a full actuarial staff at our site in Westwood, Massachusetts, just south of Boston, where the corporate U.S. office is. Page 16 just highlights some of the administrative support services. Some of the, again, the reporting, highlighting the trustee and custodial services. So where you don't have all the assets in the system held with John Hancock, we do coordinate with those outside custodians to make sure we can provide consolidated asset summaries and reporting when needed. And then from a communication standpoint, again, a lot of what we do, if you go to page 18, quite honestly, again, with a frozen benefit system, there obviously isn't as much of need for a lot of outgoing communication. And, from a pension plan perspective, there also is more of a limited need when you look at it as compared to a 401k plan, where you're actively trying to get people to participate, contribute more. They're responsible for their investments, so there's really a much more comprehensive communications campaign for that perspective. But we have been talking to, and we have done some retiree sessions in the past. I know we're planning on doing some again this year. Timing is still to be finalized, but we will be sending retirement educators here on site to be available to meet with retirees, whether they're in group meetings. And we're also talking about, if there's a need for some one-on-one discussions. We don't give financial advice, but what we can do is help them understand all the services they have available to them, answer questions about the system. If there are individuals that are still active, we can talk about how they can go online and do modeling of their benefits, et cetera. So more to come there. And as I mentioned, our call center, we're available 8 to 10 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and there's full online access as well. Yes.
I've had the opportunity to use your telephone service twice, and the response was outstanding.
That's great to
They
hear.
seemed to bend over backwards to accommodate me. I
Excellent.
was very, very impressed.
Oh, I'm good to hear that. Thank you. I'll pass that back along to the group.
However, I want to make the comment that I've received calls from several people that have complained about being unable to reach John Hancock.
So there,
Long wait times,
Yeah.
30 minutes or more.
so there was, that's been resolved, not completely. There was a communication, I think it went to Alice right before she left, but, I am glad you brought it up. So we have struggled over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 months on response time, maybe a little bit longer. The primary driver of what's causing that is a lot of the additional security enhancements we've had to put in place since beginning back at the end of 2016. So, to protect accounts, we have added in an additional number of proof points, if you will, or data security checkpoints, security questions. And when individuals call the phone center, especially the first time, if they haven't gone in online, which a lot from the defined benefit don't do, they're going through more of a series of questions up front to validate and authenticate. We did not forecast that properly, quite honestly. We didn't think it was going to have as big of an impact as it's had on call time. So that's being resolved. We have significant new hire class coming in. They've already started training. We've looked at different ways to route calls for different types of requests, or if we can identify as people come through the voice system what they need. We're doing some routing there, and we've also brought back, we call it an agility program, where former phone representatives that now work in other parts of the organization, they come back for peak hours and they assist with some of the volumes right now to alleviate some of those call times.
Chairman Burton, if I could, just for the benefit of everyone, this is an excellent point that's being made, and I would say as your counsel, if that is the only reason there's a call delay, I would suggest we're doing pretty good. I had intended at the end of this presentation to make mention that with the funds that this board has allocated to the City Attorney's Office, I had the opportunity to attend the National Association of Public Pension Attorneys conference last month. And I believe the state of Iowa had 122 clients who they believe within the Equifax hack had gained information with some additional public information and impersonated 122 clients in the Iowa retirement system, came in online and had checks redirected to an electronic bank. So from that instance, of course, that retirement system did a number of things to reorient itself. So I'm glad to hear, we certainly want to address the customer service end, but to the extent that we don't have people and faces and all sorts of checks in place, that to me is a problem we would rather live with than have 122 retirees, checks diverted, and have to deal with those sort of consequences because John Hancock was trying to be speedy and not secure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those comments. The letter that was sent, and I can recirculate it so that everyone can see it if that would be helpful. And I'll also forward along a video that Tony Tedisco, who heads up our IT group, just recorded for us to share with clients that talks about all the different ways we protect data and financial information. But the letter really addressed, some of what you're referencing to, and, the fact that again, we do apologize for the situation, but to your point, I'd rather sit here and defend a longer wait time as opposed to issues of individuals gaining access to other individuals' funds. And quite honestly, we do get those attempts, but and we do believe the Equifax situation has led to a lot of it. It was a significant breach. But with everything we have in place, and I'll bring a little bit more detail back for the next meeting that just talks about some of the things that we do. But an individual cannot change contact information, PIN numbers, account access, where checks go, without getting multiple validation. So I'm sure you're very familiar with other financial institutions. You'll get a text with a code, a one-time code, or you'll get an email. So there's a lot of that layered approach built in. I'll just leave the next section as a reference. I just included some screenshots of the web experience. Again, individuals may not have a benefit through the system, but the website is very engaging and has a lot of information that's out here and available. As I mentioned, as you can see on pages 24, 25, if individuals haven't started benefits yet, and I know there aren't a lot left, but they do have the opportunity to go out. They can estimate what their benefits may be. We have all of your system information that's coded into what we do, so we're able to track and allow that information to be shown to individuals knowing what they're eligible for. And then there are a lot of additional tools, resources, and education that's out there and available. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we come down for meetings. But we just launched a brand new financial wellness assessment. There's a lot of information out there if people want a place to go to help get a better understanding of our overall financial needs and assistance. Any questions from back to what we do or services we provide? Okay. So section 4, and again, I've shown this usually when I come to the meetings. This is an overview of the cost structure of the system. So on page 30 on the left-hand side, we do have each plan or system separated out for tracking purposes, but they're set up identically from a cost perspective. Right now, if you look left to right, I'm reporting out here what the investment management fees are, what our cost is, and then what the total is. Now, the investment management fees are a direct result of the investments that the board chooses to use and what those investment managers are charging to manage that money. So as an example, if you look over on the right-hand side of the paper, you see Goldman Sachs small cap value at the very top of the list. Just the way to read this left to right, there's 711 accounts in this plan as the end of last year. The average assets for that quarter in the Goldman Sachs fund was about $6.8 million. The expense ratio is what Goldman Sachs is charging to manage that money is 95 basis points or 0.95%. What that equals out to in dollars is $64,783. You'll see this fund actually pays revenue share, and as a reminder what revenue sharing is, it's part of that 95 basis points. It's not an additional amount, but Goldman Sachs is giving that back to the system through John Hancock to offset expenses. And that's done because, there are different agreements in place. You don't have to have revenue sharing, but why those options do exist is, Goldman Sachs offering this fund, they don't have to do all of the participant notification and disclosures or information directly to the board. We handle all of that, so they have savings, if you will, and they're able to pass some of that back to the system. So that 10 basis points equals $6,819. As you go down, you'll see at the very, in the middle of the page, you see the averages. So again, the weighted average expense looks at all the investment expense, just around 60 basis points, which translates to just over $1 million. This is an annual number, looking prospectively. The plan gets back 2.2 basis points in revenue sharing. That $37,640 offsets our cost. So, the way I look at it in a pension system, quite honestly, it doesn't really matter if you're getting revenue sharing or not, because the majority of pension systems are going to be paying the provider fees from the trust. So in one way or another, those fees are coming out of the trust assets. It just is kind of being done in a different way. It probably has more meaning on a 401k plan and how a client wants to structure that expense as to who pays it. But I know part of what Greystone does is as they're recommending investment options, they obviously are looking at expense and making sure they feel it's appropriate for the investment. And again, our cost, just back to the left-hand side, is 6.5 basis points. And again, we invoice that quarterly, which I know comes through the board for approval. And our fee schedules are in place through next year, based off of the last RFP that the city did and the 5-year term that was signed. And all that information is here on page 30. As was commented earlier too, there right now isn't any additional assessments being paid to Greystone. Greystone is being paid out of the Schaefer-Cullen assets. I think through the RFP process you've talked about, and we I think collectively would recommend changing that structure so that your consultant, whoever you choose, is billing you separately and invoicing that. That can then again be paid through the trust. There's no issues with that, but it just creates more transparency in the process. Any questions? Okay. The next few pages just list out some accomplishments and some projects completed, both from a John Hancock perspective as well as directly to the city of Portsmouth, handling multiple supplemental payments, assisting with providing some data work, ongoing data assistance, providing information for conferences and benchmarking, death audits that we perform to make sure that beneficiaries or individuals that are receiving benefits are still living. From time to time, we are not made aware that individuals have passed away and checks continue to go out. So, we go through that process to make sure that, that's not happening. And then, the work that Andre does and the valuation team. And from a communications perspective, I didn't bring this time the phone center statistics, which I do usually share quarterly. I will bring that back when I come back for the first quarter meeting. But we are looking forward to the opportunity of coming down and doing some meetings with retirees and individuals. So our service agreement does allow for that, so there's not additional cost for that either.
Do you seek reimbursement if you do find that checks have gone out?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. Generally, they're successful. Not always. But I'm not aware of any, there haven't been any significant issues with the City of Portsmouth systems. I know that.
I'm sorry, is that something that you would bring to the board?
We would make you aware of it, yeah.
Okay.
So that's all I have. Again, I put the quarterly report in here, but it's a little dated at this point, but just so that it was documented. Any other questions for me at this time? All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Oh, one other thing, actually, I'm sorry. I did bring down, and this doesn't necessarily, and I wouldn't expect this to get to approve today, but we do track authorized signers on our side for, specifically for the investment changes that are made. But the way it has been structured is that the city has had all board members be approved to sign. I'm not sure if that's something you want to continue to do, but we did update the document that would reflect the current members of the board. and who's authorized to sign. I know primarily the chairman has signed on investments changes. We would recommend there be at least 2 individuals that have that authority. So if you don't want the whole board to be listed, you could discuss, how you may want that structured. And then from an administrative perspective, we generally have additional signers listed. This is more like ongoing record-keeping work, or if we need direction to, modify. We generally don't need written or signed direction, but we like to have administrative individuals. That has not been updated, actually, since Tanya departed. I have a recommendation here to possibly have Ms. Gooden, Ms. Mosier as signers from an administrative perspective, but again, that's entirely up to how you want to structure things.
Wouldn't the same thing apply as what we had decided earlier, that it should be people within the city and/or the finance department? Because, I was signing for the investment for a while, but then you determined after looking at the city code or something that it was really the finance director or the CFO that was the authorized signatory.
Yes, that's what the code said.
So you may want to discuss that in-house and make sure that that's resolved so that it may not affect any of the board or the board changes, but it may be the city personnel.
Yeah, and we have always included the CFO position as an authorized signer to support that. That being said, with Ms. Kelly being gone and knowing that an investment change is pending, we would need that direction at this point from yourself, or if we wanted to sign off and include you for, I did list you here, just if you wanted to have it for a temporary basis, but.
Madam Chair, what I would suggest, it does say the Chief Financial Officer. Are we talking about something that needs to be executed between this meeting and the next?
I believe, the approval of the investment change.
With the board's indulgence, I'll just double check that, and then Ms. Seward, myself, and the city manager get together, make sure we're all correct, and we'll have that executed, understanding where we are right now, and we will come back if we believe anything needs to be changed. But they're right, the code says it'll be the Chief Financial Officer. So as a matter of fact, we could convene at the end of this and make sure we get the paperwork in place or in play so we can get it resolved.
Yeah, and I have Ms. Seward referenced here if you want that to remain. And if you need to make changes, you can simply handwrite right on this and then sign it or scan it into.
Would that code include like interim?
Yep.
It would, and that's why, and I know Ms. Seward, because we have a Chief Financial Officer. Yes, it would include interim, but you always want to check in terms of that time frame and that transition period of time. But yes, it would include the interim.
All right, thank you.
All right, sure. Any other questions? Kind of jumping back to the discussion about the minutes, just wanted to remind everybody that they are online, so that if you didn't attend the meeting and you wanted to sit down and watch, you could get all of the details by watching the YouTube presentation and save their office from such detailed and cumbersome, not just minute taking, but it goes from Gail, it's recorded, then it goes to somebody else who follows the transcription, and then it is sort of issued to get an overview by myself, because I kind of like doing that sort of stuff. And so if there's any way that we can kind of go to a more bulleted and streamlined minutes, it will certainly affect the amount of work that they have to put in for the minutes. If you all will just take a few minutes, take a look at it, see if that helps.
If they could include, if we agree to go to the bullet form, if she could include the link to the most current one, that would
I
be
can do that.
appreciated.
Yeah, they're doing it almost the day after. nowadays, so, I mean.
Well, by the time we get the minutes, certainly they would be there, and if she could just include the link for that specific meeting, then we could easily access it.
And you can move forward and backwards with
Yeah.
with those things. So if it's something that's like, oh, okay,
Droning.
you can move on up a little bit in time and skip over some of the more lengthy
Now,
detail.
are they archived as well?
Yes,
believe
they
so,
are.
yes.
Because we dealt with this a couple of years ago on how long and where they're stored and everything. Because there's certain requirements on how long they have to be stored and where and all that.
I will make an effort to get with both Michael Ammons, who deals with public record retention, as well as IT, and make certain, to the extent, and as everyone is suggesting, much like City Council, we do what we call action minutes. We discuss the essentials, but not as much verbatim as is done here in the Retirement Board. I will check and make certain, to the extent that the board needs to do anything additional, if they want to go to action minutes and they want to keep that video as a backup to that, I will talk with them and I'll come back to you and report on where we are with regard to maintaining those two collectively.
Yeah, because I sympathize that it's a lot of work, and I apologize, but I know that we did talk a couple of years ago about having to retain all these records and being able to go back and review those records. And if the videos are too much storage or whatever,
Right.
and if we're not able to completely access it at any point, then that may be an issue for going to bullets instead of details, in my mind.
Well, I will certainly follow up and we'll let you know what we're capable of doing and what may be the best alternative given your concerns.
And there was also a project that you all were working on with the records, and I don't know where that is, Gail.
That right now is at a standstill. I do not currently have the time to go in there and go through everything. There are several boxes of deceased retirees that could be moved to the secure storage location, but as far as a lot of the other boxes, I'm having to go through. I have found several years' worth of the financial reports. But as of right now, that's kind of at a standstill.
Question about that. Are they stored somewhere that we're not going to lose them? And I say that because we actually lost a building.
Well, as long as we don't lose the cubicle over in the finance department, we should be okay right now, because that's where everything is right now.
They have, do they have temporary services or a service we could hire to do that? I know I volunteered at one time, and you said there's a lot to know.
Yes, and that's the issue, going through it and determining, is this something that needs to be kept? If so, we don't want to just throw everything into a box, and that's the
Right.
issue we have right now. A lot of it, I can go through the box, and this file deals with one thing, and this file's another, and another, and another, and another. So I might have 5 or 6 different topics that are all in that one box, and we don't necessarily want to store it that way. And that's where part of it, you have to go through and read what's in those folders.
So it sounds like this is a project that we'll put onto the longer-term work plan of how to get it resolved for the department. The department is short-staffed, which is part of the minute issue, and it continues to be a struggle for that department. But I will make sure that this item is put onto a work plan that I'm leaving for the transition document for the next CFO to address, so that it won't get lost.
Thank you.
Anything else? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Righty. Have a good March.
March Madness.
March Madness is upon us. I'll be watching it